Hello, my friends. I'm going to kind of speak on a couple different things. Something that really it's different than what I've experienced even for the last 7 years. Haven't experienced anything quite like it. A certain understanding that there is many different people out there who do actually know the Lord. Whenever one is set to walk with God and learn His ways, that one is always separated, divided away. And it's done like this intentionally. This is how God walked with the prophets. It's how He's picked His disciples and walked specifically with them, even though there was a whole bunch of other people included in that walk. But He specifically separates people for the purpose of them really getting to know Him without influence from other people in other doctrines. In other words, he brings back a certain purity into the Word itself, so that we who walk with Him and believe it and listen just to Him can learn and recognize all of the world around them, see themselves in that world, see others in that world, and understand what God is actually doing, that they can't understand what He's doing. So it's a whole different walk. And for 7 years, I've walked like this, and God would give me one person who I absolutely was certain knew Him, but just one for 3 years. But now all of a sudden, I'm led to understand and see other people that I know for sure knows Him, just as I have known Him. And we've all been trying to do the same things. And specifically, we're all trying to do it right now. So it's very interesting to me to see this. From my perspective, it is a form of revival, which is also said that it would happen right before the end would come. Is there's always a small remnant revival of people that will stand up knowing God and declare boldly who He is, while all of those who claim to know God will stand up and fall down in front of them. Because God is not with the many, He's with the few. And it takes a lot to walk with God and know Him. His burden is easy, His yoke is light, as I've described in the video that I put out yesterday. But to those who love the world, it takes everything. They can't sell it away and walk with Him. They will not do it. So it takes a lot to know God. You have to give up this physical existence that you love, all this stuff in the world that you've fallen in love with and used to. You have to give up all these people that heap praise on you for speaking lies. You have to give all of that up, and that is such a heavy cost for anybody of the world. For those of us who know God, it's like throwing away nothing. It's like, a woman putting makeup on and then taking it off in the evening. Who cares? Why spend all that time putting it on in the first place when you're just going to take it off? That's to somebody who knows God. But to the people of the world who won't walk with Him, who won't eat every bread that comes from His mouth, you're not going to understand that. And you're not going to be able to walk with God because of that love of the world and that love of all of that praise and all of that love from those who love you when you love them. But as soon as you say the truth, they all turn against you and hate you, and that's something they cannot accept. So I'm beginning to see several different people who I know have known the Lord, maybe in a different way, maybe in a different portion than what I have, whether it be a greater or lesser, I don't know. It doesn't bother me, I don't care, but I know for certain by their voice that they have known God, just as I have. He's not some celebrity image that they worship. They actually know Him and understand Him and believe Him. And it reminds me, once again, of the movie The Stand. Before I kind of break down into that, for a year and a half, the individual who I walk with on a daily basis, we were given things such as 99 Luftballons, the song. We were given things all about the Wizard of Oz and about clowns and all kinds of different things that all painted an image of what the world is doing, and then trying to translate that into what God is saying through His Word to understand what the world is doing. As soon as I see these balloons, the ones that are now flying around the United States apparently, I understand that when that song was given to me, the biggest thing to take away from that song was that it meant war. And you look at everything that's happening, all the nations being built up for it, as if God is poking them with a stick, leading them straight into the battle against each other. You watch all of that foundation, all of that stuff begin to build up and put right in a position where all he has to do is set the spark to it and the whole world goes up. And that's currently happening. And now I see the balloon with the connection to the song and everything else that I've been walking with it. And I understand that one thing leads to another. This is another check mark on the path of the world being walked off the plank straight to its destruction. And I've said many a times, we're right in that window, that period of time, where every single night I am dressed and ready to go for the visitation, because I know it's not going to go past this window. It can't. Because everything lines up exactly as Jesus said it would. Everything. There's nothing missing. All of the experiences are exactly as he said it would be. All of the events happening are exactly what they were supposed to be. We're just waiting on that ready, set, go gunfire. The whistle to start the race. And that's the last thing. All the runners are already in position. They're all down on their marks. All they're waiting for is to hear that sound, and they go. And for that sound for us is that trumpet blast. While the whole world who thinks they know God, all of these ones will hear that trumpet and stay right where they're at as darkness covers them. And those who have actually known God will go with him. That's the only thing that we're waiting on, is that final sound. And we're in that window for it perfectly to fit. Just as Goldilocks ate her porridge whenever it wasn't too hot or too cold. It's exactly the window that we live in. So now on to the stand, and why I first mentioned how I've now seen several people, even over the last couple of days, who I know God. And it reminds me of the calling that happened in the stand. Of course, the stand, another dream from Stephen King. Stephen King, who does not know the Lord at all. He actually hates the Lord, completely turned against him. But nonetheless, all of his books that he wrote and the movies that were based off of his books, they all came from his dreams. And the Lord doesn't disqualify anybody, good or bad, from receiving his Spirit. Nobody's disqualified. He waters the good and the bad. So for all of those people who don't know God to say, well, God will never use somebody who is evil. Well, look in the mirror, and if you say that, then God's not going to use you either, because we're all evil. We're all disqualified in the flesh. So you're not telling me anything that supports your hypothesis. But in the movie The Stand, it begins, of course, with a great biological event, an outbreak, which we've just gone through. And then it goes into this Antichrist character who's Flag, who's recruiting his army. At the same time, this woman, I forget her name, is recruiting her army. So one is godly, one is anti-godly. And they're both recruiting. And Flag's army grows really big. He takes over Las Vegas. Everybody's partying there. But God's army remains very small. And they're hidden, kept hidden. And they're put on a journey to go, I think it was to Nebraska. And God, essentially, through the Spirit, through this woman who is the leader, is calling all of the children to her. And again, this was all a dream. And that kind of reminds me of what I'm seeing happen in the world right now. For those who know God, separated by those who don't. We walk with each other until we no longer walk with each other, until one is completely separated and divided out of the next. And it appears to me that that dividing has begun to happen, where we will begin to recognize each other as the people in that movie began recognizing each other as they were each called and each got to Nebraska. Well, for us, we're each going to New Jerusalem. And as somebody else gets there, we recognize them. And we give each other recognition, even if it's just in passing, because we see that the Spirit has called both of us. And that's what happens in the movie. For anybody listening to me, I have no idea who actually listens to me, but if you can watch this movie and you can see the events that I'm speaking of inside of this movie, understanding that the world will see a movie and a plot, but those who know God know a different language and see a different thing. If you can watch that movie and understand what I'm saying here, you know just how close we are to that final battle. And we won't fight it. It's not our battle to fight. You notice at the very ending of that movie, before the nuclear blast goes off, sent from the hand of God in Nevada to destroy Flag, the Antichrist, and his whole army, there's people up on a cross. And those people up on a cross are the ones who die. Well, the people who lived in Nebraska then can go on and repopulate the earth. So in other words, you have the representation of what Jesus did and what the two witnesses are going to do. But all the rest who were called did not go into the battlefield. They remained in Nebraska. They remained to repopulate it. We are the ones who are called before that event. We will be the ones to repopulate the earth whenever it's built back new. We will be the ones who are there for the millennial reign, along with those who will be resurrected like us. We are the first fruits, because we haven't been special. Nothing about us is special. We're just as sinful as everybody else is. But we stand before God naked and know Him, because that's what we've desired. Didn't desire the love and praise of people, other men. Didn't desire the love and praise of doctrines. We didn't desire the physical stuff in the world so much that we couldn't see that we're given 70 to 80 years, even if in good health, in a world where everything that we build is gonna fall down anyway. We didn't trade that away for the pearl, as they have. We have bought the pearl and thrown all of this away. So everything in that movie is perfectly put to what we're currently walking in the world. And I'm sitting here watching it all happen. And I've been given great relief, actually, to see there is other people out there who haven't fallen completely for the lies and all the doctrines of lies and all the people who are hypocrites, who claim to know God but don't. And in your heart you know this. There are others out there who have put on the white dress, just as I put it on every single night, and are waiting for the Lord in the same way. And we're being recognized to each other just as they showed up each to Nebraska and were each given different jobs and recognized to each other also. That is what God is doing right now. And as He's begun to do this, you know that the time is really, really, really short. Because for 7 years I found no one other than one. Now all of a sudden I'm finding one here, one there, one here, one there. So that means that the drawing is happening in action currently. And once the drawing begins, time is very, very short. Truly, He is right at the door. So I urge anybody who listens to me, no idea who any of you are, but take a look at least at the plot concept of this movie and see if it makes sense to you. Not from what the movie is, not from what the world says about it, but from what God and the Spirit will show you of it. And see if it's not exactly happening also for you in the same measure. God bless.